Welcome to part 3 in my how-to guide, a series of videos designed to help you navigate your way around Microsoft Flight Simulator. Welcome to the SimHanger. My name's Mark, the SimHanger for all things flight sim related. If you missed part 1 and part 2, there'll be a link to the playlist at the end of this video and also in the notes below. And today we're going to be unraveling and simplifying the camera and view functions within Microsoft Flight Simulator. As this series of videos has started rolling out, it's generated a fair number of queries, questions and requests, and a fair proportion of those relate to the camera modes and views. So let's kick off with the very basics. Microsoft Flight Simulator has 3 distinct different viewing modes or cameras. The first one is the Cockpit Camera, and in that you are bound to the inside of the aircraft, and in most cases you're actually bound to the inside of the cockpit itself. The second is the external camera, and there you're looking at the outside of the aircraft, but again you're limited in terms of distance and maneuverability. And the third and final mode is the drone camera or showcase. And in this case, it's the same as the external mode, but you're free to roam far and wide and you're not tied directly to the aircraft position. Within the various camera or modes, there are a number of pre-configured or fixed views. And there are also a number of customizable views available as well. For your keyboard or recognized input device, most of these are pre-configured for camera mode, but you're not stuck with that. You can change the configuration to suit yourself or to suit what you're used to, and we'll be having a look at the basics of how we do that. So let's jump into Microsoft Flight Simulator, have a look at the cameras, and let's get started. Once in Sim, we're going to want to choose an aircraft and an airport so we can jump in and out and test the various camera settings. So we're going to choose World Map. Once in the World Map, we're going to choose an aircraft from the top left-hand corner. Click on that, and I'm going to choose the TBM 930 for this demonstration. If you're following along, select an aircraft of your choosing. I'm now going to select an airport, Sierra Bravo Golf Lima, Rio de Janeiro. I'm going to choose one of the parking gates as I don't need my engine running. I'm going to set that as my departure point, and from the top right hand corner click on Flight Conditions, Multiplayer and Air Traffic Off. I don't want the distraction, and I'm going to choose Clear Skies and roughly midday. We're all done. Let's click on Fly, and we start up in the default cockpit view. Let's cover off some basic controls first. If you hold down the right mouse button and move the mouse, you change your view in the cockpit. And by moving the mouse, you get 360-degree views. Explain users will be familiar and comfortable with this. If you release the mouse button, well, when you move the mouse, only the cursor will move, not your head. Once you've finished looking around, there's a quick and easy way to get back to the default view. Hit Control Spacebar and you're back to the pilot's standard view. If you then tap on the spacebar only, this will give you an elevated view. Tap on the spacebar again and it will return you to the pilot's view. Using your mouse, you can also zoom in and out by using the center wheel. Turn the wheel forward and it zooms you in. Turn it back and you zoom back out. And again, to return to the pilot's view, the default view, we'll tap Control Spacebar. This reset to pilot's view is one I recommend you configure to your input device. Let's now go and look at some general profile settings. Hit Escape and then click on General and then Camera. These general profile settings will determine how your camera operates in Sim. The first item, camera selection, will determine what camera your sim will start up with, cockpit or the chase view, which is the external camera. The default setting is cockpit. The sim has a quick view function which we'll be demonstrating later on, and this setting determines whether you hold the button in order to maintain the view or you tap the button again to return. Smart camera is something new for us simmers. If you've got a particular point of interest or point of view, at a touch of a button it will give you that view. Zoom can be manual or focus. I recommend leave it on manual. Focus mode is self-explanatory and I'd leave that on toggle. You can set the cockpit camera selection to wide angle, which is the default view, close, which brings you closer to the instruments, or landing, which gives you the elevated view. The free look mode and the free look reset operate very much the same as quick view. Do you need to hold down the button in order to maintain the view, or do you tap again to change your view? The heads up view, which is the elevated position, operates much the same. You either hold to maintain it, or you can tap the key again to return, depending on whether it's set to toggle or hold. Your height and horizontal position can be changed by default in the cockpit by changing the parameters as demonstrated. You can preset zoom and zoom speed, and this can also be done in Sim. Free look momentum we'll be demoing a little later on. Camera shake is either on or off, fairly straightforward, and a flashlight mode is either auto or toggle. The instrument view mode and instrument view selection, again you can choose how the views change, toggle or hold, or manual and auto. The instrument heads-up display mode has caused some confusion. The heads-up display in Microsoft Flight Simulator is not a typical digital display. I've now clicked that to on. Let's go back into the sim. It is only visible in the external camera mode. There is the heads-up display, providing all the basic information you require to maintain flight whilst in external mode. The few remaining selections are fairly straightforward, and we'll be covering those during the course of this video. Let's go back into the sim, make sure that we apply and save any changes that we may have made. By moving the mouse to the top of the screen displays the menu bar, and we can click on the camera to ascertain which view we're in. We're currently in cockpit. We have a choice of external or showcase, showcase being the drone camera. We can determine what actions our keyboard or any other peripheral for that matter carry out by hitting escape, and then from that menu bar choosing controls. Click on that. This displays our control submenu, and along the top indicates what controllers are attached and what particular profile they're currently using. Let's choose keyboard. If the profile is default, that's the sim's default profile, and luckily that can't be overwritten. You can of course create your own. On the left hand menu bar there is a filter with three options: assigned, all and essential. Let's click it to all. We can also expand or collapse the various menus for easy navigation. The three options under the filter obviously help you navigate as well. All will do exactly what it says. It will show you all possible combinations. Choosing essentials will give you a smaller range of options, and these are the functions that the sim feel that you should configure, or become familiar with what key presses are appropriate. I don't always agree with their choices, to be honest. And lastly, assigned will show what keys are already pre-configured to that controller or keyboard. Let's choose camera, and as we're in cockpit mode, let's choose cockpit camera. The list will show all possible combinations of views that are available within that camera mode. It will also show the key or key combinations for various actions that have been assigned. By doing this, you're able to determine what actions various keys carry out. We'll be having a look a little later on in the video at how we change the configurations. But before we do that, let's pop back into the cockpit. Staying with the keyboard, there are a number of other ways that we can look around the cockpit. If we just use the arrow keys, by pressing up we move up, and by pressing the down arrow we move down. At the same time, if we press the right arrow we move right, and the left arrow we move left. And it stops at the confines of the cockpit, unlike some other sims that will take you outside the cockpit. If you hold down the Shift key and then use the arrow keys, well, that will change your view, left or right, up or down. The sim will also provide us with what it calls quick views. If we hold down the Control key and then press the left arrow key, it will look to the left. Now, if you recall from the profile settings, we set the default for quick view as hold. That means this view will be held as long as we keep the key pressed. If we had chosen toggle, we could have released it and it will only return to the original view once we press the key again. Holding down the Control key and pressing the right arrow key, we look to the right. Similarly, if we press the down key, we will look to the rear. And if we press the up arrow key, we'll look up. All these actions can of course be mapped to your peripheral. And typically for many simmers, that will be your yoke or your joystick and use your POV hat switch. Interestingly, the sim defines the quick views as the default, rather than the free look mode. If you're used to other popular sims, well, you may find this a little disconcerting at first. I certainly wasn't a fan at first, but I must say it is starting to grow on me. And of course you can change it from the quick view to the free look views if you want, as found in other sims. And we'll have a quick run through on that a little bit later on. Other functions and views are available from the in-sim toolbar. Click on Camera. Clicking on Reset Position will return you to default pilot view. There are a number of other functions that can be changed in sim. The camera type has two modes, free look and fixed look. When you hold down the right mouse button and move the mouse and thus your view, it changes to free look. When you release the mouse button, well, then you get fixed look. If you toggle the camera type to fixed look and you move the mouse, you'll see that your view will change without the need to hold down any buttons. Activating the upper position just gives you the elevated view. Smart Cam will activate the View AI. Zoom can be set to auto or manual. This is a little buggy I found. I would leave it on manual. You can change the default zoom level, and you can also change the free look speed. The speed setting dictates how fast or slow it will react to mouse movements. So let's turn it up to 100%, default is 50, and you can see just a small movement of the mouse is a big change in view. If we turn it all the way down to 10%, well, we need a lot of mouse movement just to get a slight change in view. Personally, I like to leave it between about 30 and 40%. That works well for me. The free look momentum setting depends whether you want a hard stop to your view. The easiest way for me to explain this is to demonstrate it. So let's turn it all the way down to 0%. And as we change view, as we stop moving the mouse, it's an immediate stop. Conversely, let's change it up to 100% and you can see as we stop moving the mouse, there's a gentle slowdown. A slight movement of the camera once we've stopped the mouse. Let's now turn our attention to the pre-configured or preset views that are available within the Cockpit Camera. We have Pilot, Instrument and Quick View. At first glance, they may not seem to be very much there, and that's because the window is smaller than the menu. So you need to go to the bottom and drag it down. Now we can see what's actually in the menus. Under Pilot, Close moves you closer to the instruments. The Pilot view is the standard view. Landing gives you a look over the nose of the aircraft, and Co-Pilot, well, that's self-explanatory. I stand to be corrected, but I don't think there's a way to pre-configure these views. The number of pre-configured instrument views does vary from aircraft to aircraft. The TBM 930 in this instance has 6. By clicking on the various tabs, it will give us different views of the various instruments within the aircraft. You can also use the A key to more quickly cycle through the various views. Let's now take a look at the quick view options. These are again pre-configured views, and again clicking on the tab you can cycle through them. You can also cycle through them using the Q key. Most of the views are fairly standard and generic views from inside the cockpit. So a quick recap. We've learned how to do quick views using the arrow and control key. We've also learned how to look around the cockpit using the arrow keys again, but with the shift key. And we've also learned how to move around the cockpit up and down, left and right, just using the arrow keys. We've also learned to look at pre-configured quick views and instrument views. And finally, under the cockpit camera section, we're going to look at customizable views. For most default aircraft in Microsoft Flight Simulator and whilst in cockpit camera mode, you are restricted to movement just in the cockpit. The TBM 930 is one of the few exceptions to this. You may also have noticed that there's one movement that we haven't covered, and that's forwards and backwards. And that is because the default profile for camera settings does not have this option. So this gives us a great opportunity to demonstrate how we can change the configuration on the keyboard. So by hitting escape, let's head back to our controls section. Make sure we're under the default profile for the keyboard, and let's change it to all so we can see all possible mappings and cockpit camera. And we're looking for forwards and backwards. In Microsoft Flight Simulator, rather than label it as move forward or backward, they've got translate cockpit view forward or backwards. And we can see there's no keys assigned for either forwards or backwards on the keyboard. So let's go and map some keys for these actions. First of all, we'll do translate cockpit view forward. In this video, I'm not going to cover the input configuration variables and all various options. This has been covered in my previous video, and if you're not familiar, I'd encourage you to watch that. Link to that video above and also in the notes below. I'm going to click in the box for forward view, and I'm going to choose Alt and the up arrow key to move forward. If this was already assigned, it would give me a warning. The default profile cannot be overwritten, so any changes means you've got to create your own profile. And I'm going to call this one keyboard profile tester just for this demonstration. Click OK. And now we can see translate cockpit view forward is Alt and the up arrow key. And now for the down, I'm going to choose Alt and down arrow key. No warning, validate, and we're done. I should now be able to move backwards and forwards. Apply and save, and let's go back to the cockpit. And see if it's worked. Holding down the Alt key, press forward. Yes, we move forward and back. Well, that all seems to be working just right. Now we've got that done, well, we can now start setting up some customizable views. For example, let's say we want to set up our own instrument view. So to make it easier, I'm just going to get rid of the yokes, and then I'm just going to focus in on the two lower panels. And zoom in a little bit more. That looks about right. And now I'm going to hit Control, Alt, and a number. In this case, I'm hitting Control, Alt, and 1. Control space to get back to the default view, and then I'm going to hit Alt and the num key that I chose, so Alt 1. And that automatically takes me to that customizable view. So it's hold down Control and Alt key and hit a number key to set your view, and Alt and the number key to change to that view. Let's set up another view, and now that we've got full maneuverability, let's move back into the passenger section of the aircraft and let's set up a window view. And I think a view from the back passenger seat looking over the wing would be just fine. A little bit more. There we go, that looks about right. Yep, that'll do. Now Control, Alt, and 2. Now that we've saved this view, we'll go back to the default pilot's view. Let's now test it. Alt and 1 should give us the instrument view, that's right. And Alt 2, there we are with the wing view. That's great. We now have some customizable views. I'm now going to switch away from the keyboard and use the honeycomb yoke and give a quick example of how we can change the views. Back to our control sub-panel, and this time we're going to choose the Alpha Flight Control. Now this yoke does come with some default settings. Using the POV or hat switch, left and right gives you a quick view, and forward and backwards alternates between the standard pilot's view and the close view. Let's say we want to change those views and just use the hat switch to look around the cockpit. So to help us navigate, we're going to collapse the menus, choose Camera, and go to Cockpit Camera. Now there's various ways to do this as highlighted in my previous video. I'm going to use the search box search by input. This will let me see what keys already mapped to the POV. Clicking on the box, I've pressed the POV down. It's mapped to another view and I want to get rid of it, so I click on the box and clear current input. Once that's done, validate. The box is empty. We can see that the POV down button no longer carries out that action. I'm now going to do the same with the POV up button. I'm going to click in the box and then once again I'm going to click clear current input and then validate. And the previous key mapping should be gone, which it is. Now that the hat switch up and down mappings are gone, we're going to do the same for the left and right. I've selected the POV left button. Same process. Clear the current input and validate. We'll now clear that from the search bar and put in the right button. Clear input, validate, and we're clear. One important point to note, be it a keyboard or peripheral that you're mapping actions to, is that the same key can be mapped to carry out different functions in different viewing modes. In the above example, although we've cleared the joystick POV right button from the cockpit camera, it is still active and functional in a different mode, such as external camera and the instrument views. So in summary, the mappings are mode specific. Now that we've cleared the default mappings, let's now customize the POV hat switch. I collapse the menus and choose Camera to make it easy to find, choose Cockpit Camera, and now I'm paging down, looking for the mappings I want. I don't want translate because that means movement. What I'm looking for is cockpit look, and there's cockpit look down, that'll do. I choose that, press the box, and I press the POV down. The configurator comes up with a warning to say the joystick POV down button is already used elsewhere, and we see it's being used for the external quick view rear. External is a different viewing mode, so we're okay to continue to map this, as we're in cockpit camera mode. We're now going to continue and map the remainder of the buttons. We're going to choose look up, and then look left and look right, following exactly the same process we've just done. We've now mapped our hat switch or POV button with up, down, left and right. You'll see there are other options available, such as cockpit look up left and look up right, look down right, and so on. There's no need to map these buttons. Let's jump back into the cockpit, make sure we apply and save, and let's see if it's worked. Back into the cockpit and let's see. Now moving the hat switch, and we've got the traditional look around the cockpit with no quick view or snapback involved. We can switch between the cockpit and external view mode by hitting the N key. You'll find it useful to map this to a controller. You can also access the camera from the top menu bar and click on external. We're now in external camera mode. As in the cockpit, hold down the right mouse button and move the mouse and it will give you different views. Release the mouse button and it will hold that view. Once you stop moving, if you continue to hold down the mouse button, it will then flick back to the default view. Unless of course you change the mode to toggle. You can also access any pre-configured external views by holding down Ctrl Shift and then the number keys from 0 through to 9. These are preset and I haven't found any way to pre-configure these or change the setup in any way. The A key again will cycle through views. From the toolbar menu, if we in the external camera and try and access external views, nothing shows. There's nothing visible, no selections available. However, if we go to the showcase camera and have a look at fixed or external views, there they all are. This is a bit of an anomaly. The other menu options are exactly the same as in cockpit mode. By holding down the control key and then pressing the directional arrow keys up, down, left and right, it gives you quick views. The up arrow will give you an overhead view. Just like in the cockpit mode, you can use the center mouse wheel, scroll forward to zoom in and scroll back to zoom out. Control and spacebar to reset the view. Within the external view, the number of mappable functions are considerably less than those within the cockpit camera mode. Clicking on camera and then choosing external camera, we can see what's assigned. To see all mappings, don't forget to click the filter to all. And here we see a list of actions that can be configured to your controller or to your keyboard depending on your preference. We can see, for example, the quick views there have been configured. You could of course change these from quick look to the free look and configure them as we did previously with the yoke. Moving on to the drone or showcase camera. From the cockpit it can be accessed by hitting the insert key. Hit the insert key again and it will return you to the standard pilot view or previous view, and accessible from the toolbar camera by clicking on the tab showcase. The drone camera is similar to the fixed camera, but you're not limited in terms of distance and maneuverability, and it can create amazing views. The W key moves forward, the S key back, A moves left and D moves right. To move up, press R, and to go back down, press F. The drone camera is really designed to be configured to your peripheral or control device. And by going to the control section, we'll see all the options available under the drone camera are view orientated. Let's choose the keyboard, make sure the filter is on all. Let's collapse it so we can find it, camera, and let's click on drone camera. Here we can see the keys that are pre-configured. When in drone camera mode, you can use the numpad keys to access rotation, yaw, and pitch and so on. Using just the keyboard in this mode is a little bit clunky. To get the most from this camera mode, it's recommended that you configure it to a hat switch or similar, or a dedicated controller. This will give you more finite control and allow you to get the views exactly as you want. Ideal for airliner pilots on the long haul or content creators such as myself. I use a PC compatible gamepad, and I've set up a number of different profiles depending on the sort of aircraft that I'm flying. I've chosen the gamepad as the controller, so let's hop back and have a look at the aircraft. As you can see, you're able to control and maneuver quite easily and simply using the dual joysticks on the gamepad. This of course could be configured to a joystick or any other peripheral. Within the in-sim menu, we've got a number of different options, including speed that can be varied. It can be very fast, or we can turn that right the way down so that the camera movement or view moves much slower. We can also adjust the rotation speed. The scale of adjustment is up to 100, which is very fast, and 0, which is no movement at all. Turning it right down gives you a slow and easily controllable movement. I'm not sure exactly how far you can move away with this camera from the aircraft, but I've been up as high as almost into the stratosphere and I was still climbing, so it's certainly a considerable distance. If your aircraft is on autopilot, for example, it's great. You can head down and see something that's interested you and investigate. The drone follow mode is fairly self-explanatory. Turn that off and the camera will stop following the aircraft. Returning to the default drone view is quick and easy. Just hit reset position and you're back. One thing I'd like to highlight is that the mappings for a particular button may carry out different things in different modes. So in cockpit mode here, I'm moving the joystick. If I now go to external mode and do exactly the same thing, it's the same mapping, and we can see that the elevators are moving up and down. However, in showcase mode, I've got different mappings for these buttons and their movement buttons. It's important that we understand this to prevent confusion. The Slew Mode falls under the camera settings, although it's not really a viewing or camera function at all. It's a method that we can use to relocate and reposition the aircraft if it's not in the position that you'd like it to be in. By accessing the control panel, we can see the various actions, and to toggle Slew Mode on and off is the Y key. Back to the sim, and we can hit the Y key and we're in Slew Mode. Now moving the movement keys that you have mapped or default, we can now reposition. Hit the Y key again to come out of Slew Mode. Well, I hope this video has gone some way at least to make the use of the camera and view options within Microsoft Flight Simulator easier for you to use. If you're a content creator like myself, or you just really love those external views and like to explore a little bit whilst you do it, well, I can't recommend enough the control that a PC compatible gamepad gives you. Highly recommended. If you'd like to see more of this type of thing, don't forget to subscribe and tap the bell for future notifications. Thank you very much for joining me. See you all again very soon, and bye for now.